Welcome to the Can We Talk About It podcast.
I'm Jude.
And I'm Tori.
And this podcast is about us having open, honest dialogue about stuff that we've been dealing with in our lives, especially as two young girls in our 20s.
Some conversations will be heavier than others. Some may be funny, sad, or even triggering.
This is an open playground where we can talk about anything. Hence the title, Can We Talk About It?
So let's get talking. First day of school, looking like a fool on your first day of school.
What?
My mom used to sing that to me every time we would go back to school for the first time. She would always sing that to me. So welcome back. Hello and welcome back to episode 4 of Can We Talk About It? And so in case you missed the hint on my little song, we were talking about school on this episode because not only by the time this episode airs, everyone in the country at least should have gone back to school by now.
Yeah.
I know people in Illinois recently started, I think, and then people in Texas I know start next week. Mm-hmm. So technically, school hasn't started yet at the time of this recording, but by the time this episode airs, school have already been started.
Yeah, y'all are getting ready for the new semester, new beginnings.
Yep, and then you'll be going back to school.
I will be.
By the time this episode airs, you'll have about, 3 more days before school starts?
Yep.
Roughly?
Yep.
And I have graduated, so freak all of y'all who are going to school because I don't have to do it anymore. So anyway, we are talking about college, school. We're talking about just kind of all of the things that encompass education. So we hope that you enjoy this episode. So without further ado, let's get started.
Well, do we want to do the weekly report?
Oh my God. So we have decided to do a little weekly check-in, I guess, the weekly report. We'll just kind of tell you guys what we've been doing for the last couple days.
Or the last week.
Yeah.
The last couple days. That's not a week.
I don't know, but this week, I don't know why my speech is all off today.
Just a little blah, blah, blah.
Anyway, so yeah, I have a stutter sometimes, and it seems like it's coming back today. So anyway, weekly report. Judith.
Oh, how dare you call me that? I'm offended. That is not my name.
What is the weekly life?
What?
I don't know what's wrong with my speech at the moment. Weekly check-in. Tell me what's up.
Yeah. So my week has been full of working a lot of shifts because I'm trying to save money before I have to go home next week. I'm gonna be home for like a whole week, and then after I come back, I'm only gonna be working like 2 days a week because school's starting up again. So I've been trying to take as many shifts as I can at my job right now. So I can save up as much money as possible before my paychecks become very thin again. Other than that, I've been reading this book called Essentialism. It's a pretty good book, basically about like decluttering things that are unessential in your life and learning how to say no to things that like are not important to you and how to choose what is like your main priority and what you value. And so like that's been helping me out a lot. Other than that, so I started this 26-day workout challenge and I have been doing pretty good. I have worked out every single day for the past 5 days. I've accomplished my workout goals. And like, that's so good because like I barely consistently worked out this entire summer. As a dance major, I'm gonna be taking 9 classes when school starts up in the next couple of weeks. That means like 6 hours of dance a day. So I was like, I need to be in at least some shape before those classes start or I'm literally gonna die. And so I've been starting this workout challenge and it's just like an hourglass figure challenge, and really I'm just doing it because I like doing toning workouts and resistant training, and it's mostly that. It's a lot of like core and then like legs and butt workout, which is really nice. I really enjoy it. So yeah, I'm on day 5 of 26 days, and then I'll have to go back to school and take 6 hours of dance classes a day.
Nice.
So yeah, anyways, that's it.
Nice.
How about you, Tori?
My week has been super uneventful. Oh, so actually I've started this new thing with myself that I am going to start watching all of these movies that are based off of YA books. So I've seen The Hunger Games already, but I hadn't seen Mockingjay Part 2. So anyway, I spent all of Sunday watching The Hunger Games. And I was very upset by the way that it ended because I felt like it just kind of like was anticlimactic. And then yesterday, Monday, I spent the whole day watching the Divergent series, which also ended very anticlimactic. And also kind of ended on a cliffhanger, which is super annoying. Other than that, I am also been reading my way through or listening my way through It by Stephen King. I've been listening to an audiobook and I'm only 200 pages into a 1,000-page book. And my goal is to finish it by the time chapter 2 comes out, which is in September. I don't think it's going to happen, but we shall see. So yeah. So let us jump into the podcast at this point. The main meat, I guess, of the podcast.
The main meat.
So we are obviously talking about school and college and all that good stuff, especially since school's about to start up again.
Whoop, whoop.
As I mentioned before, school's probably already started by the time this episode airs. You're getting ready to go back to school. How do you feel about the fact that you're getting ready to go back to school in a few days? You're going into your second year. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I have conflicting feelings. I'm both excited, but also a little concerned about a few things. There are some things that I really want to work on. I don't know if I'm gonna have the time or like the energy to be able to balance them properly. Like, I really want my fitness and my diet and my finances to be like my main priority going into this next semester. And considering I'm only going to be able to work 2 days a week with all my classes, so I'm only going to be working Saturday, Sunday mornings. And so I'm obviously going to have much smaller paychecks. I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep up with my financial goals since I'm not going to be working as much as I've been working this past summer. So that's one thing that I'm a bit concerned about is like money specifically and like making sure that I can budget properly considering my income is going to be very, very low. It's going to be like less than half of what I have right now. But I'm really excited because I feel like I have a bit more clarity since taking like the summer off. Like I had one summer course over the summer, but it wasn't really much. But I feel like I've gained some clarity about like what I want to focus on. I was initially trying to pursue a double major in music or do a minor in either hip hop studies or something else that I found interest in, but I've just basically decided I'm going to focus solely on my dance BFA and I'm not going to do anything extra on the side. Like all that stuff can just be left for if I have free time and I want to explore it, then I can, but like I'm not going to pursue it like as an actual degree. So having that clarity, I feel like I'm kind of going into next semester with these are the things that I'm going to focus on. These are my priorities. So my choreographic piece that I'm trying to work on, that I've been working on all summer with my friend, I'm going to be trying to audition that. And then I've actually written out like specific goals that I have for each of my classes. And I feel like I have a lot of clarity about like where I want to go. I'm also just hoping that I don't get like, I feel like last year I was very easily influenced by the people around me and like what everyone was telling me. So I'm hoping that I can keep my mind clear like I've had it over the past summer, if that makes sense.
Very good. So I feel for me, I feel weird not going back to school because I've been in school for so long. To suddenly not do the thing that you've been doing for so long just seems kind of foreign to me. It just feels weird to me not going back to school. So, but I'm not complaining about it, that's for sure. But at the same time, it just feels weird not going back to college. But anyway, so I wanted to talk about, as I mentioned at the start of the episode, I wanted to kind of go from the very beginning to the end of school. So you go to high school and kind of that transition from high school to college. Now, Jude and I both took gap years after college. We both took, 2 years? I took 2 years. You took 2 years, right?
Yeah, basically.
So we both took 2 years out of high school. Now, my 2 years was completely unintentional. I don't know if yours were.
Mine, I didn't think I was ever going to go to college.
Okay.
So actually going to college after 2 years was unintentional.
Okay. Okay. See, I had applied for school. I didn't get in. But my original goal was to become a veterinarian. So naturally going to school for animal science, biology, what have you, was the target. So that, of course, requires a lot of math and science SAT scores. Now, I'm very good in science, but I'm garbage at math. So my SAT and ACT scores weren't very high in the math department, which, of course, brought my grade down a lot, my score down a lot. So anyway, I applied for all these schools that I didn't get accepted into. So that was really embarrassing for me. But yeah, taking the 2 years unintentional, I kind of want to talk a little bit about what you did during your 2 years and what I did during my 2 years. So I'll let you start.
Okay. Basically, when I was in like my senior year of high school, I decided to go to South Korea because I wanted to go over there and learn how to dance. And like the reason for that is like I come from a very small hometown and I didn't particularly know any places that I could go to learn how to dance. Everywhere around me, nobody knew how to do like hip hop or street dance styles. Like it was either ballet or like modern technique, but it wasn't like very good because I live in such a small town that nobody there was very exceptional at what they do, if that makes sense. Like, they were very mediocre. And so the only exposure I had to dance was through K-pop, which was something that I got really into because I used to be really into anime when I was younger as well, and then I got into Korean stuff as well. And so the only exposure I had to dance was through K-pop choreography, and that's why I was like, oh, South Korea, like, they know how to dance over there, I'll go over there. And so basically a month after I graduated high school, I went over to South Korea, and I stayed there for about a year and 3 months. And I spent 3 months there just kind of like going to this, like what they call Hongdae. It's like a street performance, like street. I would go there and I would watch like the people perform there. And eventually I ended up joining one of the teams after about 3 months. I went to their studio and I was mostly self-taught there as well, because even though I would perform with the team, like I had to teach myself mostly everything, and occasionally somebody would help me. So I was with them for about 6 months and I performed with them for about 3 months. And then I went to a commercial studio called 1 Million Dance Studio for about 3 or 4 months there. And then after that, I came home because I decided I wanted to come to Chicago to go to Columbia. And I hadn't really planned on going to a college, but after like a lot of self-exploration while I was over in Korea and stuff, I was thinking about like what I wanted to accomplish with my dance. I felt like I had grown as much as I could over there, and I felt like I wanted to continue to grow in a different direction. I felt like going to college and getting a diverse education in different types of dance. Like at Columbia, I was able to study ballet, modern, West African, hip hop, and all these other different techniques all in one place. And so I was like, I want to go and do that. And I was never one that was like a fan of like the atmosphere of like LA or New York. LA is, I don't know, it's very Hollywood, like very performance commercial based. And then New York is very like prestigious, nose stuck up. And so I felt like when I discovered Columbia, everything that I read about their program just kind of like suited me. And also they didn't require an audition to get in. And I knew with my like very informal training where I was self-taught, like I wasn't going to be able to get into a school that I had to audition for. And then so I came back home for about a year, and I worked until I had to come to Chicago for college. And that was basically how I spent my gap years.
So when I graduated from high school, I was really embarrassed. At the time, I didn't see it as me kind of running away, but looking back on it now, it definitely was a sort of running away point. But I went to Atlanta, which is where my dad's parents live, and I lived there I left at like the end of June, and I stayed there until December, I think. November, December. Excuse me, so I wasn't there very long. But in that time period, though, it was kind of nice because even though I had moved, my goal was to go to the University of Alabama. So my cousin was helping me with my SAT prep and all that good stuff, but it just wasn't working. I took the test like 4 times, and I couldn't get past a certain level. It just wasn't working for me. So I realized very quickly that my goal to go to the University of Alabama or just any college that was related to science, it just wasn't going to happen right now because my math score was keeping me away, which is the worst thing, I think, because for just as a side note, the fact that you have to take SAT tests to get into school, which will tell the school if you're good enough, is a problem, but whatever. Columbia didn't require SAT scores, so that's nice. Mm-hmm. If you can send them, just so they can figure out where to place you in like your math, but it's not necessary. Yeah. So anyway, I applied for all these schools, never got in, and I came back to Houston. But during that time I was in Atlanta, I spent a lot of time, I wouldn't say by myself because I wasn't by myself, but I spent a lot of time figuring out what I liked, what I didn't like. I spent a lot of time writing my book, getting it into a place, and I just spent a lot of time getting to know myself. Mm-hmm. And then I turned 19 and things went downhill, but that's okay because I made it out. But when I went back to Houston, the time I turned 19, I ended up, getting my car, and I spent a lot of time just like fixing relationships that I had with certain people. For example, like I fixed the relationship that I had with my dad because he and I were on the fritz. My brother as well, certain friends. So I kind of got my just like physical life in order, but my mental state was completely off. Mm-hmm. But I kept pushing and I kept going, and I didn't work at all because at the time I didn't even think about working because my mom had died when I was 10. So that was 2005, right? And so when I turned 18, I got all this money from life insurance. Like I got a shit ton. And so at the time I was like, I don't care about money because I'm balling out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it didn't bother me to go to college or, to go to get a job or anything because I had all this money. And then I bought a car and things changed because that basically took up all of it. So anyway, by the time I got a car, though, I was looking at colleges because my dad was like, either you are going to find a job because I'm sick of you sitting around my house looking stupid, or you need to go to college. And I was like, well, I can't get in college because colleges are assholes. They're not going to let me in because I can't test properly. And so a friend of mine, her mom, well, we're not friends anymore, ironically enough, but I'm still, I still have a good standing relationship with her mom. But her mom was like, well, you like to write, so why don't you go to school for that? And I was like, I know how to write. I know how to speak English. I'm perfectly fine. I don't need to go to school to be a writer. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to try it. So I typed in, good schools for creative writing, and Columbia was the first one to pop up. And when I noticed that it was in Chicago, I was like, how the hell am I going to go all the way to Chicago? I can barely survive in Houston, and I'm going to go to a big city. And I, on the website, it's like, oh, we're in the South Loop. We're all cool. Everything's great. And my dad was like, I don't think you should go all the way to Chicago. And I have family who live kind of in these little old towns around Illinois, but around the city rather. So I wouldn't be completely alone, but being downtown, you're kind of on your own.
Yeah.
And so my dad was like, I don't particularly want you to go all the way out there. And I was like, well, I haven't even got accepted yet, so let's just see what happens. And I applied in December, and I got in March, and we came to Admitted Students Day in like April. Mm-hmm. And I moved in September. So it was a very quick turnaround from December to April to March to May. You get, my timeline was off, but you get it.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was a very huge transition. And from like the end of May up until September, I was at the gym. Just for some reason, I was like, I should get my body in order to come, which completely was unnecessary.
I think I did the same thing, though. I think I was like, when I go to college, like, I want to be in my best shape ever. Like, I started working out like a ton before I came here,
which was completely unnecessary because I gained all the weight. So
it
didn't really matter. But yeah, my dad's like, let's get you to the gym. Let's get your health together. And at the time, I moved out of my dark sadness of 19, and I was 20 at the time.
Yeah.
And so that was nice. And I want to talk a little bit about the transition from going to college from high school. Now, even though you and I took time off, we both started by the time we were 20. We were already in college by the time we turned 20.
Yeah.
But I think, at least for me, I was still kind of in that high school mindset, even though I was 2 years removed from high school. And I want to talk a little bit about how people can transition from, or how we transitioned rather, from high school to college.
So for me, I feel like those 2 years off was so necessary for me to figure a lot of things out, because I feel like in high school, we are so easily influenced by the status quo and like what people expect from us and social influences. I didn't really know who I was. So that 2 years gave me a chance to figure out who I was and what I wanted.
Yeah.
But even though I figured that out, I didn't really have the capacity to handle certain things in an appropriate way or like in a mature manner. I was still figuring out how to be accountable for myself. Like once I started college, like I had to really learn, because I kind of blamed all of my problems on my family and on like my toxic friendships and things like that. And I didn't really learn how to be like accountable for myself. So I think that's the biggest difference between high school and college, is that in high school, it's very easy to not be accountable for ourselves because we're still kids. And so when I came to college, I didn't have any choice but to learn how to stop A, running away from my problems, and B, blaming all of those problems on people other than myself. Like, yeah, I'm not responsible for the things that happen to me, but I am responsible for how I respond to those things and how I grow past those things, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I also, on top of just being accountable, holding yourself accountable, I also had to learn how to be independent, because I come from a very close-knit family, and I'm the youngest of my family, and my family is probably going to listen to this, so they're going to hate me for saying this, but my family coddled me to the point where once I realized that I was being coddled, I was like, fuck all of y'all for doing that to me, because now I don't know how to handle myself, if that makes any sense. But that sounds really bad, but you get what I'm saying. But it's just like they coddled me to the point where I was depending on them to pay for everything. I was coddled to the point where I was dependent on them to feed me, tell me what to wear, tell me how to dress, tell me what to say. It was all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then that probably makes me sound like I didn't have like any independent thoughts, but because I did, but I just didn't act on them because I was afraid that if I did, my family would, you know, smite me. But once I got into my 20s, really, that's when, you know, once that cloud of 19 hovered away and then 20 came around, I was like, what the, you know, I had all these thoughts and I was just like, I have so many things that I could have been doing this whole time. And the point is that I kind of allowed them to treat me that way.
Right.
It was just something that they were like, oh, she lost her mom. We got to make sure she doesn't, you know, jump off a bridge, that kind of thing.
Right.
So anyway, I had to learn how to be independent. And I got a huge dose of that when my family had come to help me move all my stuff into the dorm, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my dad immediately turned around and drove away. He didn't even hang out with me for a few minutes.
Yeah.
He didn't take me to lunch because we got here the night before, and I moved in like around 10, and we were probably done like around 12 because, you know, elevators are bullshit. But by the time everything was said and done, it was about 12:30, 1 o'clock. And so I'm thinking, well, he can just spend the night at my cousin's house, get up in the morning and leave. We can spend the next couple hours. Let's go around the city.
Right.
The lake is right here. Let's go to the park. Let's go have dinner. We can park my car because we drove in my car up. And I was like, we can park the car. Let's just get to know the city. And then, because after this, you're not going to see me for 4 years. Like, in my brain, I'm thinking I'm never going to go back to Houston.
Right.
I went back in Houston in 4 months because we had, you know,
Yeah.
Christmas. But anyway, I was like, oh, it's going to be great. My dad was like, are you cool? And I'm like, yeah, I'm cool. He was all right, bye. He got in my car and he drove away. That was it.
Yeah.
That was it. And all of my roommates had their parents or a friend that they knew or just people in their life that were there to make sure that they were okay. And my roommate, I had an actual roommate versus like who we're sharing an apartment with.
Right.
And she was like, oh, my mom and my dad and my sisters are here. We're going to go to Target. Do you need anything? And I'm like, no. They're like, oh, I thought your dad was here. I saw him. And I was like, no, he left me. And they're like, oh. And so it just makes it sound like I have terrible family. But
no.
It got to the point where I was sitting at the apartment completely by myself. Mm-hmm. I was sitting at the goddamn island with I didn't have anything. I didn't have nothing except for my wits. I had to figure out how to do things on my own. So I had to learn how to be independent. And that was really hard because I was expecting people to take care of me. Mm-hmm. And when it came time to like buying groceries, that's when it hit me because I was like, my dad is supposed to do this for me, but his ass isn't here. So I have to figure out, and then I had to figure out what I wanted to eat. And that became crazy because the whole freshman 15 is real. Now, because we live in the city, we have no choice but to just walk everywhere we go. I mean, we have transportation, but we don't, I didn't really use transportation that much unless we were going out. You're kind of just naturally losing weight because you're walking everywhere. But I had to figure out, I was like, okay, how am I supposed to get these groceries, right? I don't have a car, so I can't put the groceries in the bag, in the back seat. Yeah. So I had to walk down the street with all these bags in my hand, and that became such a huge thing because I had to figure out what I was going to eat. And the whole freshman 15 thing came in because I got so excited because I had all this financial aid and that refund check hit, and I had all this money. And I was like, oh, I never got to eat this when I was at my dad's house because my dad was like, I want to make sure my kids are eating healthy, whatever. Mm-hmm. I was like, I don't have to eat apples and kale salad anymore. I can eat Doritos and donuts. And I was eating horribly for like the first month and a half of school. Right. I didn't necessarily gain a lot of weight because we were walking and doing so much, but I felt so gross.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a huge transition of going to school with learning how to eat and take care of yourself.
Yeah, that's definitely like a huge thing. And like, it's so funny. I can't 100% relate to the independent thing because even when I was younger, like I started working when I was 14. And when I started working, I had to pay for a lot of my own stuff. And then I spent like almost a year and a half in Korea. I didn't see my family once because I was halfway across the world. I couldn't visit them even if I wanted to, and vice versa. I was just used to being on my own. And so when my parents came and dropped me off for college and they left, I was kind of like, cool, whatever. Like I was used to it at that point. Like I wasn't expecting that. And like that's kind of like just how I grew up because like my family, they all kind of pride themselves on their independence as well. And so it's kind of like everyone fends for themselves, which leads to other emotional issues, which I won't get into right now. But like,
we have a whole episode about that though.
Yeah, that'll be coming up some point in the future. But Yeah, I mean, so I didn't really relate to that point. I had already kind of gotten used to it. I was still personally trying to figure out how to take care of myself, like in other ways. I had been experimenting with dieting and stuff when I was over in Korea, but like I didn't know how to do it in a healthy way because I was more focused on image-based stuff than focused on like health. And so like I was still figuring that out when I came to college as well, and like how to shop for groceries and eat healthy but like on a budget, and how to make time to exercise with all of my school, and how to make time to take care of like my mental health and things like that. Those are all things that I'm still working on even. So yeah, I can definitely like relate to that for sure. I think that's something that everybody has to learn when they get into college, is like all of that. It's just like taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
In all of those different ways.
Yeah. I remember in the times that when I wasn't in school and I was in Atlanta, I was talking to a friend of mine, and her name is Olivia. So hi, Olivia, if you're listening. But she was at college, and she was talking about like doing laundry or something like that. Mm-hmm. And she was like, I have no idea how to do laundry. Do I use cold or hot? Do I do dark colors? It was really funny. But I think it's just so weird because I in my head, I knew coming to college there was going to be a sense of independence, because obviously I didn't have my dad there to feed me, buy me stuff, whatever. But once the reality set in, and once I realized that even though I have family up the street, like my cousins and stuff they live like 30 minutes away, they're not going to come over every day. Right. And the first like few months, like I would go to their house every now and then, and I would do laundry, or they would invite me over for dinner. But I kind of phased out as time went on, because like they got busy, I got busy, and I started to get used to like being on my own, so I didn't necessarily need them, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. But it is such a weird thing, because you're so used to people doing everything for you, or you're so used to just having things done already. Mm-hmm. So when you come to college, it's not like that's not the case.
Right.
And so it's just a weird shock, especially if you're super far away from family. And I got really scared, because if something happens to me, my dad can't just drive 2 hours. Or my brother went to Texas Tech, so that's an 8-hour drive. That's far.
Yeah, my family's about 8 hours away too.
It's from the bottom of the state to the top of the state, but it's 16 hours to get from Houston to here. 14 to 16 hours. So if something happens to me, my dad's he's not going to take, it's going to take him several hours to get to me. So that was kind of a weird transition. But in regards to, you kind of touched on this a little bit, and I touched on this a little bit, but let's kind of move into picking the right college, because I have a little bit of a story, and I'll get into that a little bit later, but picking the right college is extremely important. You already talked about how like you picked Columbia, but when did you go to admitted students day?
Yeah, so Columbia was the only college I applied for.
Okay.
So, because like I was never planning on going to college in the first place. I was like, I want to be a dancer. What do I need college for? Like, you don't really need to go to college to be a dancer. I ended up choosing to go to college because, like I said, I want a diverse training. I felt like they were able to offer me everything that I wanted to learn in one place. And I also just felt like I wanted to settle into like a community, if that makes sense. I wanted to find people who have the same passion as I do. And over in Korea, like I was able to kind of find that, but because I'm a foreigner in a foreign country, it was something that I knew wasn't gonna last. And so I wanted something that I knew I could settle into, and I could find people that like I'm gonna be able to keep in my life and like build those connections with. So it was a combination of a few things. And when I was looking for a college, I was basically like, I just want to go to a place that lets me do a dance major, do a double major, because like originally I wanted to double major in music as well. And I wanted a place that didn't require auditions. Really, you only have to audition to get into the BFA program, which I got into. Yay! Little celebration there. But I knew that if I tried to apply to like some New York fancy school, like I was not going to get in, because I was self-trained for like 2 years at that point in dance. And I was like, I haven't been training for the past 14 years. There's no way I'm going to get into a dance school like that. And plus, I wanted something that allowed me to also train more so in street styles and like hip hop. And Columbia has an amazing hip hop program. We're very focused on having like a diverse background. Like we value different dance backgrounds on like an equal level. So someone who has like 14 years ballet training, we consider that equally as valuable as someone who has like 5 years of street dance training and they're self-taught. Like we consider that stuff to be equally as valuable, because different techniques just like doesn't make them like lesser or more so. There's kind of like a dance thing in like where people kind of see ballet or modern as like a like a higher class of dance, which gets into race a little bit, but like we're not going to go there right now. Columbia really tries to focus on like considering like West African and hip hop as like equally as valuable as modern and ballet. So like they require training in all 4 techniques. And so that was something that I really, really valued coming into Columbia. And like because I had those 2 years off, I didn't just lightly choose to go to college because I felt like I had to go to college, which I think a lot of people do. And so I think it's important to think about if it's important for you to go to college, like why you're going to college, because some people think that they just have to go to college straight out of high school, and that's actually not the case. You have other options. So
some people don't really have the option. Some people's parents are like, you have to go to school. But I totally understand, because there are, you know, my godbrother, for example, like he never went to college because he just was like, this isn't something for me. So whenever I think about choosing the right college, I think there's multiple things that come to this, because even though Columbia kind of happened by chance for me, because I was just like, look, I just kind of like, it was a kind of a shot in the dark because I just didn't know what to expect. It ended up being a pretty fulfilling experience, to be quite honest with you. I was going to a school that put a lot of value in going to college. They do a lot of like college prep, for example. The high school that I went to in Houston is kind of like a mini college, basically.
Right.
So you have what we called pathways instead of majors, right? And there's no like bell to dismiss you. As soon as class is over, you just get up and leave. As if you're in college, there's no bell to dismiss you in college. Your professor is like, okay, get out.
That sounds cool. Why didn't I get to go to that school?
Right. So, and you have to apply to get into the high school. And they give you like a cool laptop or whatever. You get to pick your pathway, and you know, you get to kind of pick your class or whatever. There's internships. There's certain programs that you can.
Dude, what the hell? That's
so
the coolest thing I've ever heard of.
In my high school, especially in the medical tower, which is where I was at, you have you can get certain certificates and stuff like that. So I earned my CVA, Certified Vet Assistant, and which is something that people normally you don't get when you're in high school. So that was pretty good. But so I went to a high school that put a lot of emphasis on going to college, basically. And so for me, there was a lot of things that went into just picking a college, because it wasn't just about, I'm going to go to UT, and that's because it's the major college in Texas, I'm going to go to UT, right? But there's a lot of things that go into picking a college, which is obviously figuring out what it is that you want to study. So there's that. So if you want to study, you know, science, you don't want to go to Columbia, obviously.
Yeah.
And being realistic about what it is that you want to study. But some people, and here's my little story. So this girl that I know, she was going to Texas Tech, right? And she was there for, I think, maybe a year. And she decided to, I think she ended up going to like Texas A&M or something like that. I don't know what college she ended up at, but she went to a college in a better town, basically. And the whole time she was complaining about Texas Tech is in Lubbock. And if you guys don't know anything about Lubbock, Texas, it's West Texas. So it's basically dust and dirt and a bunch of nothing.
Yikes.
So and she was just complaining about how there was just no, you know, there's nothing in Lubbock, basically. So I think that's something people have to take into consideration when we're looking at colleges, is that you're going to be at this college, you're going to be living in this town for 4 years. You might go home for Thanksgiving or Valentine's Day or Christmas or whatever, but you're going to be essentially living in this place for 4 years, especially if you're maybe out of state where you can't travel as much as you would like. So picking the right college in the right town is very important, because Lubbock isn't a place for everybody. If you like excitement in stores, Lubbock is not the place you want to live in, because it's West Texas. There's dust everywhere. It's just not a particularly fun place to live. Or if you're someone like me, where you prefer quiet and you prefer, you know, just easy suburban life, coming to downtown Chicago probably wasn't the best idea. I've had a good time, but now I'm ready to get out of here.
Right.
So picking the right college, but also making sure you're picking the location and getting used to the fact that you're going to be living in buttfuck nowhere, if that's what you're okay with.
Yeah. And here's something that I think, I get a lot of questions about this, because I've made like Columbia college-based videos, and people ask me about like the environment. And a lot of the environment and like the type of people who come here are based on the fact that we live in a large city. So I tell a lot of people, I'm like, people aren't super friendly. Like, not in a sense that they're rude, but like people aren't trying to get up in your business, and they're not constantly like trying to be sociable and stuff, because people are so busy with their own shit that they've got going on. People are very like distracted in their own lives. And so a lot of times people aren't going to be going out of their way to be friends with you. And like it can be a bit difficult to make friends with certain people who aren't like just there all the time, if that makes sense. I made a lot of friends with people in my dance classes, but as soon as school was over, I didn't really talk to them.
Yep.
And so like there's that. Like it's not that people are rude. People are quite friendly, and like I've got a good environment. Like I really like the dance center, and I like a lot of the people in the dance center. And like it feels like kind of like a small little community there, and I really like that. But on the other hand, like you have to understand that because we do live in a large city, it's got like that very busy, like everybody's like minding their own business type of vibe. And so you have to think about that as well. Like the location you're going to be in will also affect the type of environment and the people that you're going to be around. Mm-hmm. So if you go to a place that's like a community college, you're more likely to get like that social circle.
And because Columbia we don't have a campus per se. People around here will call it on campus because you're like nearby.
Right.
That's basically what on campus means, is you're nearby. But we don't have a campus. We don't have a quad. There's a student center being built now, but we don't have a centralized place everybody hangs out. We don't have a cafeteria. Well, we do, but we share it with other colleges, and you can only get in if you have a pass.
Yeah, and I don't, so.
Exactly, I don't either. I've been in there before, and it's pretty cool.
I've never been in there.
But, it's expensive as fuck, though. But anyway, but yeah, so we don't really have a campus. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We have a bunch of buildings on a street. We don't really have a centralized place. There's people that are going to work and people that have kids. There's literally a high school right here. So there's a community around us. So we don't really have a centralized place. Whereas if you go to a university, you've got student center over here, a library over here, cafeteria over here, gym over here. So you're kind of in the same group. So even if the school is large, you kind of run into you'll eventually run into a group of people. Or we don't have fraternities either, or sororities. Right. So you can't really, there's not a lot of.
Yeah, so I spend most of my time with like the dance majors because we're all in the same building. Mm-hmm. Like we're in the 1306 building. The theater kids are in the 916 building a lot. The film people are in like another building.
1104.
Yeah.
The writing department, they moved us from Michigan to Congress, which is garbage. If anybody goes to Congress is a garbage building.
It really is.
It's always hot. There's no windows.
That's where most of the LAS courses are at as well. But anyways.
But yeah, I think choosing the right college or making sure that you're putting the background effort into picking out the college you're going to, because there's nothing worse than I'm going to go all the way to Texas Tech, and then you get there and it's nothing but dust and one Walmart. So the next part I kind of want to talk about is actually being in school and how we handle actually being in school. There's this new trend going around recently, especially people at Columbia, where they just want to drop out.
Yeah, I don't even think that's just a Columbia thing. I think that's just a thing. Just like, I think our generation and the generation after us, just the people who were born in like the 2000s, I think, they have like this, there's just like a different attitude there. I feel like people lack accountability, and I'm not saying that's their fault. It's probably just a lot of the environment that we're being raised in these days, but
I think what it is, and it blows my mind, the fact that I'm meeting people that are born in the year 2000 or 2001, like that is tripping me out. The fact that you were like, oh, I just turned 18, 19, and I'm like, what year were you born? Oh, 2000, and I'm like, fuck you. Get out. I was like breathing and existing. I was in school, and you were born, but regardless, it's fine. So one of the things I think is crazy, because I've met people that are born 2000, 2001, is that they are from a world where everything is easy to get.
Right.
Internet, I mean, obviously I wasn't born before the internet, obviously. I'm not that old. What I'm saying is,
but like it's on our phones now.
Right. Internet wasn't as evolved, They didn't have to deal with dial-up AOL. They didn't have to deal with call me on Saturday because it's free, only have so many minutes during the week.
Or VHSs.
You know what I'm saying? They didn't have to worry about any of that. They maybe have been exposed to it, but they don't know what it's like.
Yeah.
YouTube was very popular by then, or becoming really popular by the time they got older.
Yeah.
So their access to certain things is so much easier, and they see people who are born the same year that they are making millions of dollars posting stupid videos on YouTube. Like that girl, Emma Chamberlain or whatever the fuck, she's like 12 and she's making millions of dollars on YouTube. So I think there's that too, where they're kind of being like expecting to be famous very quickly. Yeah. I don't want to say famous, but like expecting things to happen quickly, because that's the world they live in. Very quick.
Yeah, very easy access, and just very like,
and
they can do anything.
Yeah,
and like that's the thing. Like, yeah, we can do anything, but I think they expect to be able to do everything that they want to do, and you can't do that.
It's one of those things too, where even people that are older than me, like my parents and parent and like older people that I know, like adults and stuff like that. Adulty adults is what we call them. They're like, you guys expect things to be handed to you.
Right. So kind of going out like to this like dropping out of college trend, I feel like there's a lot of like, personally for me, there was a lot of pressure to go to college. Like when I was in high school, even though I didn't know exactly if that's what I wanted, I just felt like it was expected of me. And so I don't know if that's how people feel like when they go into college nowadays, but I just feel like people go into college and they're not really prepared for what college is, and they're not prepared to be independent, like we said before, and be accountable for their own lives. And so it's really hard to learn how to be an adult and how to take care of yourself, and then also deal with the stress of college on top of that. And so
especially if you're not prepared for it.
Yeah, and I feel like because people don't really know what to expect. It's just kind of like they do it because that's like you graduate high school, you go to college. You go to college, you get a job. Like that's just kind of like the traditional route, I feel like these days, like it's expected for people to take. And so I feel like people get into college and then they get so overwhelmed and they've just been dropping out. And that's not necessarily like the best thing to do, because what you're doing is you're accumulating all of this debt and then you're not even getting a degree out of it. And so you have debt, you have no degree. So they say on average, people who earn a degree, even if you're not working in the field that you earn your degree in, you tend to get about $30,000 more a year. Just based on the fact that you have a degree at any job that you go into. And so basically you're earning $30,000 less per year, and then you have like several tens of thousands of dollars in debt because you dropped out of college halfway through. And so you're making less money and you're in debt. It's just so like not smart, and I feel like it'd be better for people to wait to go to college until they know that they're ready for it.
Yeah, but there's also some gray area in that, because I remember when I took my unintentional 2 years off of college, my brother was like, keep in mind that there's going to be a point in time where you're not going to want to go to school because you get complacent, you get lazy. Mm-hmm. And he was like, especially since you just got done with high school, which is so in your face, you know, especially the high school that I went to, it's like on top of being on drill team, going to class, it was a lot.
Right.
So he was like, the fact that you're about to go to college, this is going to be that times 10. He was like, you might not feel the same way about going to college. So he's like, so keep that in the back of your mind going, you need to have that mindset of I'm going to college. Because if you're like, oh, I'm just going to take some time off, there's a good chance that you might not actually go back. So
right. Don't just take it off for the sake of like, I want to break from school. Like, right.
But so when you jump into college and you're not prepared for it, I think that's the craziest thing. But I think having a support system in college too helps, like if you have your friends and stuff like that. But so the whole idea of dropping out of college just blows my mind. I completely understand dropping out of school because it's too expensive, or it is actually that hard, or your mental state isn't right, or you have some issues with your family where you just have to leave for a few months or whatever. I'm completely okay with that. But just dropping out, being like, oh, everybody is just so not on the same page as me, and nobody understands my art. I'm just poor, and I'm just like so stressed out. My boyfriend will go with me, and I just
life is so hard.
I just can't handle it, because there's so many people that I've met over the last year, and they're all 2000s, let's be honest. They're all like 98, 99, 2000.
I'm a 98.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you're different because you didn't grow up with a silver spoon. You know what I'm saying?
I'm special.
You didn't grow up getting a pat on your back. You know what I'm saying? So I met so many people over the last year that are like, oh, I just need to drop out of school because I just can't handle it, and I'm so stressed out. I'm like, how are you stressed out at an art school where they only require you to go to school maybe 3 times a week, depending on what classes you're taking, right? Well, maybe because I was a senior, so I only went to class like twice a week. But
I have 4 times a week.
But how are you stressed out at a school that
you're literally studying what you want to study?
Exactly, and it's at your own pace. And Columbia is
they're so laid back.
They do kind of beat the will out of you to do your craft, but that's the point.
Yeah, obviously. Like it's your craft. It's not like they're beating you to like be perfect at science when you're a dance major.
Exactly. Not only that, but you're not studying pre-med, so if something goes wrong, somebody's gonna die because that's pre-med, obviously.
Right.
Or we're not studying engineering where there's a fault in the program, something's gonna go wrong, right? That rocket shit we just blasted off is gonna hit us.
It's
instead.
Like you're painting. Like
you're literally painting.
You're painting.
You're literally typing words on a page.
The worst that can happen is someone's gonna look at your painting, or they're gonna read your story, and they're gonna be like, "This is garbage."
Yeah, and I completely understand the whole idea you're an art student, you're very sensitive about your shit, as they say. You know, I'm very sensitive about my art. I can really understand, because as a writing major, there were so many moments where I was scared to submit my writing, because I thought, not only was the professor going to hate it, but I'm going to have to read this out loud, or they're going to read it out loud, and the whole class is going to hear me or hear the story, and I don't want people to know. I don't want people to be embarrassed by my work. I completely understand that, but at the same time, isn't the whole point of art is to expose it to the world, right? So naturally, there's going to be someone who's going to go, this is utter garbage. There's other people who are going to say, this is pure genius. So it's just something that you got to just get over. If I'm a writer, what's the point of me writing when no one else is going to read it? That's kind of stupid. Unless I'm just writing for the sake of just my own mental thought, right? So just this whole idea of dropping out of school is just, it's trash.
Right.
I understand if you need to, but
yeah, I think it just depends on like what you're wanting to do and all that stuff. Like I said before, I think people with degrees tend to make more money. Just like statistically speaking, that's just like a fact. So degrees can be helpful, but no, you don't need a degree to be successful. You don't need a degree to make a lot of money. Yeah, I think
it's gonna be a little bit harder,
especially in the arts. And like, but if you don't have a degree, you're gonna have a fuck ton of a lot of talent and a lot of like grit
and a lot of luck too. There's a lot of luck in regards to that as well.
But also, even just with other things, like I think people who go to school for like business or design or things like that, you just have to, I don't know, I think people really need to prepare themselves before they go to college. And I think taking time off is a good way to like I said, like me and you, we had that time off to kind of figure certain things out before we went to college. So we weren't figuring it all out while we were in college. So we weren't as overwhelmed. But obviously there were still things that we're figuring out through college. But I think gap years help. I recommend them for basically anyone, unless you're just like, I just want to take a break from school.
Yeah, or unless you're just one of those people that you can just handle it. Like, you don't really, stuff like that doesn't really affect you.
Yeah, but I feel like all students, like especially high school age, like coming out of high school, like I think it's important for people to get to learn who they are outside of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's when when you start going to college, that's when I'm changing my major or I'm changing my whole school career happens.
Right.
But I mean, that's just kind of standard stuff.
Yeah, and I feel like don't be afraid to change your major. Like, that's not a big deal. But like dropping out, I think that's like a whole other thing.
So yeah, I think that's all really great. So for the sake of time, because we don't want this episode to be 4 hours long, we are going to end the podcast now, or the topic at least now, and we will come back in a few weeks and do a part 2, which is going to be going through the actual run through of being in school actively.
The college experience.
Right, from the top to the bottom. So,
and then life after college as well.
Yeah, well, you're not there yet, so.
Well, you can talk about it. I'll ask you a bunch of questions.
Don't know how.
I'll interrogate you.
Yeah, and I'm just now getting there, so I don't really know how much insight I can have.
I'm
but
gonna interrogate
you. We will get there either way.
Yeah, and just in case anybody's listening has any specific questions about college life and life after college, go ahead and send us some questions in. We have our Twitter account at canwetalkberry, BARRY. We also have our email, the talkaboutitpod@gmail.com. You can find all that stuff down in the description. But yeah, just shoot us some questions if you guys want before we record our next episode.
So at the end of every podcast, we always do a quote to end the podcast with.
Yes.
And I have a quote that I think is going to be quite awesome. The quote of the podcast is from a very powerful figure in history. Don't look, you're cheating. It's a very powerful figure in history, and this quote is from Malcolm X. Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today.